Everybody, I am Talisa Smith. I am the BCBA for Calvert County Public Schools, and this is the first episode of Calvert County Public Schools Behavior Corner podcast. I have been with Calvert County for almost 2 years, and we were doing some parent trainings and then talking to one of my colleagues, and she came up with the great idea of doing a podcast because then that way people can listen to it on their own time. And here we are. I have with me today the good, great Sue. Sue, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the people?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sue Rafalowski. I am the parent coordinator for Family Support Services. I work with families of children with disabilities and developmental delays from the age of 3 until 21. So if you need any information about community resources or IEPs or classroom services or whatever, transition to adulthood, just about anything, you can give me a call and I will help you find an answer. I am also the parent of a 26-year-old young man on the autism spectrum who growing up had challenging behaviors. So I've kind of been through pretty much everything that anybody could ever come up with. So I'm hoping that we can do this podcast and give you parents some ideas.
Yeah, so simply put, Sue is an expert. She has life experience that supersedes anything that me and my degree could even comprehend. So today we just want to do an introduction to what the intent of the podcast is and just give some very brief information, and then we'll wrap it up and put it out there for you guys to have, because the whole purpose of this is to provide you guys with access to more support and more information to help with your individuals who are dealing with symptoms of having autism. So the purpose of the podcast, again, is to help with interventions, help with setting things up in your home, help with understanding what's on your child's behavior plan. Some of that language can definitely be confusing. We want to talk about behaviors. We want to talk about what behavior is, things you can do to help shift that behavior. We just want to tackle everything that we can think of that would be a great support to you guys. And some of the behaviors that we will be talking about this year will be tantrums, dropping, elopement, aggression, physical disruptions, anything that you can think that your individual might possibly be engaging in. We're hoping to touch on that subject or something closely related to it. Sue, how was it for you when your child was in school? Like, did you have access to things like this, or was it just a lot of trial and error? We're trying to figure out what was best practice.
That was a long time ago. It was a lot of trial and error, and it was a lot of as a parent not understanding things, and quite honestly, at that time, school didn't understand it either. So it was a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of what I do is still trial and error. Like, there is definitely backed by science. Shout out to all of you who do research and make what I do possible. But a lot of what I do still is trial and error, because we can observe a behavior and assess the behavior and come up with this amazingly clad, solid behavior plan. And then it's just like, wait, that the behavior has changed. What is that? What's going on? We weren't doing this before. And then you're back at the table. I think that's the name of the game, especially with this population. You know, it's trial and error, because I may be crying yesterday and every day before then because I wanted access to goldfish. And today I've decided goldfish are yucky and now I want gummy worms. And it's just like, excuse me.
That was my kid.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They would have a reinforcer for him, and, you know, 2 days later, he'd be on to something else. and they'd have to figure out what was going to make him want to do something.
I believe you. I mean, I am not on the spectrum, and I'm like that. I thought that my favorite thing to eat was peaches and blackberries, and I stumbled upon mangoes, and now I won't eat a peach. So, we change and we grow as individuals. Like I guess it's expected. It just isn't the most convenient thing when you spent 2 months creating a plan, and then it's just like, wait, the plan is not going to work because that is no longer what this behavior is communicating. And that's also a very important thing to remember, is that ultimately behavior is communication. Like, everything we do is centered around getting access to something, whether it be a person, whether it be for something to stop, whether it be because I want you to give me a specific item, or because I want access to do something that makes me feel well. All behavior is communicating something. And I think that's the important part to remember when faced with challenging behavior, is that the individual is trying to communicate something. It's just about learning what it is that they're communicating, and then hoping that this style of communication will be consistent for whatever it is that they're asking for. But like we just talked about, we know that that's not the norm.
Well, and once you think that you know what that child needs, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be wrong.
Oh, yes.
That's that trial and error thing.
Oh, yes. Well, the good thing about the science behind what I do is that we have 4 functions for behavior, and they are essentially the seat, the sensory, and these are things that are automatically reinforced, so I don't need to be sustained by anyone else. I can do these things myself, and I will be reinforced by myself. And while it's great that you might want to participate with me, I don't need you to participate in order for me to get access to reinforcement. Then we have escape. So this is when I am engaging in behavior because I am trying to get out of something, whether it is getting out of doing a task, whether it's getting out of going to a certain location, whatever it is that I find aversive, I will engage in certain behaviors if I know that they will allow me to escape from something. Then we have attention, and this is when I am engaging in behavior because I just want someone to attend to me. Come and rub my back. Come hold my hand. Come give me a hug. Come give me tickles. Just come sit and talk to me. I may not respond, but I want you to come and provide me with some attention. And then our last function of behavior is tangibles. This is when I want access to things. I want my Play-Doh. I want my goldfish. I want my gummy worms. I want my iPad. I want my cookies. I want my crackers. Whatever it is that I want, behavior that I engage in that gets me access to those things, that is behavior maintained by tangibles. What do you think your son's behaviors were communicating most frequently for you?
I think a lot of it was escape. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it had to do with the anxiety, mm-hmm. or, maybe that or sensory, he just wasn't comfortable. Mm-hmm. But he also, a lot of the times it was tangible. He wanted something that a lot of times that was not a possibility at the time.
Mm-hmm. You know what I find is that a lot of the individuals that I provide services to here at CCPS, the behaviors are maintained by multiple functions. Mm-hmm. I will have an individual whose primary function for the behavior is escape, but then we have that slight underlying function of attention. So not only am I engaging in tantrum and behaviors because I don't want to have to go to media because I don't like that class, I'm also engaging in that behavior because I know that someone's going to come and pay attention to me. So I'm going to scream and kick and cry and flail my arms around because it's going to get me out of going to media. So that's satisfying that escape function, and then my teacher is going to come and attend to me to help me calm down, and the teacher for media is going to come and attend to me to calm me down. And if I get myself so worked up, not only will they attend to me so I can calm down, then we'll go off to the sensory room and have our own private time. So I've gotten access to escape, and I've gotten access to attention. And because I've gotten those things, now my behavior is being maintained by that. And I see that happen across the board at all schools, all grade levels, from pre-K all the way through to 12th grade. I see individuals who have behaviors that are maintained by more than one function. And generally that happens when we unintentionally provide them with that reinforcement that we didn't even know they were looking for. Like, sometimes we get so focused on the fact that, like, no, they're just trying to get out of doing something. So then we want to come in and talk with them like, hey, well, how about we do this? Well, how about we do that? And I'm not saying that it's not okay to have those conversations with them to figure out what their limit is so that you can try and stretch their limit, but also be respectful of it. But unknowingly, now we've just provided and taught them that you can have attention when you engage in those behaviors. And when that happens, more likely what we see is an increase in their behavior. So at first we maybe were just engaging in tantrum behaviors because we didn't want to go to media, but now I'm going to do it because I don't want to go to media, and then I'm going to do it at home with mom when she tries to take me to soccer, because I don't like soccer. Because when I go to soccer practice, I can't just kick the ball when I want to. I have to do drills with the team and have to follow the rules, and I can't pick up the ball and bounce it, but that's what I really want to do anyway. But because my teachers at school unintentionally taught me that if I engage in this tantrum behavior, I can get out of doing what I want and I can get access to attention. Now I'm going to start throwing tantrums in multiple settings and getting access to what it is that I want.
Yep. That sounds familiar.
And honestly, I don't even think this is just a thing that happens with our individuals on the spectrum. I think this is a universal thing. We do it all the times with people we have relationships with. And when I say relationships, I mean like our family members, our friends, even your significant others. They engage in some type of behavior. And because at the core of people, I think we really just want to make sure that people aren't unhappy. And so you go in doing what you think is the best because, you know, you just want to check in on them. Like, you want to see like, hey, why are you upset? What made you cry? Oh, no. OK, so we don't have to do that. Oh, you could have just told me. And, you know, we provide all of these statements to people because we want to provide comfort. But unintentionally, we just provided them with a form of reinforcement that allows them to escape whatever it is that they should be doing. And we teach them that if you cry and throw a fit and you're my friend, I'll come chase after you to make sure that you're okay. Even though, you know, that's not necessarily the most socially appropriate way to be engaging with others. So we, as a people, we generally reinforce unwanted behavior all the time. All the time. I'm guilty of it. My mother was guilty of it. I used to be able to cry and throw a fit, and I wouldn't have to go places. And I'm pretty sure she didn't mean to reinforce that, because now she had to find places that I was willing to go happily because she didn't want me to be unhappy. But now that I know better, I'm so sorry, Mom, but it worked. It worked. There were certain houses that I didn't have to go over, and there are certain foods that I didn't have to eat, even now as an adult. I will not eat beans because I was allowed not to eat them as a child because of that unwanted behavior I engaged in anytime it was time to eat them.
Yep. What mothers put up with.
I know. I feel like I say this on a weekly basis. Like, we don't deserve our parents. We don't, because you guys put up with us and you still love us and you do whatever you can to make sure that we are happy and healthy. And it's not easy. And this is for individuals who are quote unquote typically developed. I didn't have an intellectual disability growing up that added in some extra challenges for my family. I was just me. And unfortunately, because life is hard, you don't necessarily have the time to fight every battle. You have to pick what battles you're going to fight. Like, am I really going to fight her today about putting on these cowboy boots that are not only hideous, but they are also not appropriate for the weather? Because that was me. I convinced my father to let me buy cowboy boots, and my mom was so upset because I needed winter boots. I lived in Chicago. It was ice and snow everywhere. And I convinced him to let me buy his cowboy boots. And then I was very determined to wear the cowboy boots in a blizzard. And so it was just like, okay, do we fight this, or do we let it go so everybody can make it to where they have to be in the morning on time? And I won that battle until she came home with snow boots, and then I had to retire my cowboy boots. But it happens, and I'm with you, parents. It's wise to pick your battles. I had those conversations with my instructional assistants often, that you want to pick your battle. Like, do you really need for them to have on their socks and their shoes to go from one side of the classroom to the next? Or do you just allow them to walk from one place to the next place with their shoes off, but they're not tantruming, they're not engaging in aggression, they are not knocking things all over the place? Now, I'm not saying that we have to just allow people to do whatever it is that they want, because we do have to provide some type of consequence, whether it be reinforcement or punishment. But we have to, you just got to pick your battles. If they're having a super hard day, do you really want to get into the fight about putting on your socks and shoes, especially since the shoes that we're wearing is most likely Crocs? That's the big thing now. Everybody just wears Crocs everywhere. Like I said, is that really a big deal? Like, do I really want to argue about that today? No, I would much rather you not destroy the computers that we're sitting next to. So let's just go right along, and I'll pick up the shoes and we'll put them on before we leave the classroom. Like, pick your battles.
Yep, that's exactly it.
So I mentioned earlier, just a few seconds ago, about reinforcement and punishment when we are thinking about consequences, because regardless of whatever it is that's happening, there is always a consequence to our actions, whether that consequence is natural or whether it comes from an outside force. Regardless of whatever it is, how it's happening, who's providing it, if it's naturally happening, if someone from an outside force is responding to it, all behavior has a consequence. And when I say consequence, I don't mean in terms of you are grounded. I mean in terms of there is a reaction to every action that someone engages in. And with the field of ABA, our consequences are either reinforcement or punishment. And the thing to remember about reinforcement and punishment is that with reinforcement, you're increasing the likelihood of that behavior happening. Remember my story earlier about tantrums? So if you are engaging in tantrums and getting access to a maintaining factor, then that behavior is being maintained by reinforcement. But on the flip side of it, if you are engaging in tantrum behavior and the consequence is not reinforcing, it's not maintaining your behavior, it's discouraging your behavior, then it is said to be a punishment consequence. And when I first got into the field and I heard the word punishment and I heard the word consequence, it felt like a slap in the face. Like, excuse me? Are we really we're punishing children for engaging in ways that is natural for them? Like, that doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem nice. And then once I had more time to delve into the information, I got to learn that it's not necessarily punishment in the way that the world sees it. It's not about making the person feel bad or feel guilty or feel like they've done something wrong, which is usually what people associate to punishment, at least from what I've experienced in the world. That when we think about punishment, we associate it to bad behavior. But, behavior isn't good or bad as far as we're concerned. Remember, it's all just communication. And so if you are wanting to increase the likelihood that your individual will engage in a specific behavior, then you want to provide him with reinforcement, him or her. For example, if you come home from work after a long day and you walk in the house to your teenager washing dishes, please make a big deal about that. Provide them with so much reinforcement. I'm talking, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You can have an extra hour of whatever it is that you have restrictions on in your house. You want to make a big deal about it, because what that'll do is it'll fill that person with those happy feelings. And those happy feelings are attached to reinforcement. And once I get access to those happy feelings, I want to feel that again. So if washing dishes gets me tons of attention from mom and gives me hugs from mom and it puts a smile on mom's face and I just get the warm and fuzzies, likely I'm going to wash dishes again. I may not wash them every night, but I'm at least going to do them frequently enough so that I get access to that reinforcement. And that's kind of just what you want to do when you're trying to increase the likelihood that someone engages in that behavior more often. You want to provide them with reinforcement, and you want to make sure that the reinforcement is attached to what it is that they like. You wouldn't offer me gummy worms because I don't eat them. But if you offer me a Dove bar, I might be able to be persuaded to do something that you are asking me to do, because that's reinforcing for me. And that's important to remember when we're looking for reinforcers. When we're providing reinforcements to our individual, it has to be reinforcing to them. You wouldn't give someone who doesn't really care for the poppets, the things that kids push, the button thingies they push. You wouldn't give that to someone who doesn't find that fun. Reinforcement has to be directly attached to the person that you are providing the reinforcement for. What were some ways that you used to provide reinforcement for your son when he was growing up?
Oh, goodness. Have to think back. What did we do? He had access to his video games, of course, for a limited time. Or he, a couple of times he worked towards getting a transformer that he was wanting. He might get something edible that he liked. Just the typical. What actually worked for him a lot of times were just some sensory input.
Nice.
Tickles or, bounces or anything like that when he was younger.
It's so great when they're younger and their reinforcement is very simple, because then it makes it's so much easier for me to just give you tickles and hugs and high fives, as opposed to your reinforcer being something like a video game. Because if we're out in the streets,
Right.
How am I supposed to give you access to that? It's much harder for me to give you access to a video game as opposed to your reinforcer being a peppermint and a high five and a hug. What? That's all it takes? You can have peppermints, high fives, and hugs all day for everything you do, every single thing you do, because it's easy for me to give you that reinforcement. And that's why I think it's really good to have a list of things that that's reinforcing, and to try and have on your list some big things and some small things. Because you want to be able to provide them with reinforcement that's easy, that's quick, that doesn't have much cost effort from you, and that we can move on quickly from it. If I only like Legos and I'm only going to do things for Legos, that means that you have to either, one, never go anywhere because you have to have access to the Legos at home, or two, you have to carry the Legos everywhere with you. And I don't know if you ever tried to put Legos away when a child was also trying to play with the Legos, but it is not an easy task. It is not an easy task to try and corral all 400 of the Legos and put them back in the bag while your child is trying to still play with the Legos. And it's just like, oh my goodness, this was such a bad idea. Such a bad idea. So if you are thinking about figuring out some quick reinforcers, you want to do things that don't require much, don't have much materials, that you can have in the glove compartment in your car, or in their backpack, or in your purse, or in your pocket, especially if it's something small as like a piece of candy. You want to find those quick things. You also, you want to have the big things for big events, like, excuse me, if they've been out all day and they've been doing X, Y, and Z, and you have decided, oh my gosh, you've been amazing. When we get home, you can do blah, 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 blah. Of course, have those big grand things because you want to provide those big reinforcers for those big behaviors. But if it's those like small things throughout the day, please do yourself the favor and find things that are easier to manage, to give and take away, because it'll make it so much easier for you to reinforce your child in their behavior. I think that's all I have for today, at least for this first episode. I hope that we provided you guys with some great information in the midst of all of our chitter chatter, that you were able to find things to take away for you to be able to implement in your home with your individuals. Again, if you have any questions, if you need some support, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or Sue. If we are not the right people to provide you with support for what it is that you need, we will do our best to try and find you the people who are the people who should be helping you. That was a lot of people in one sentence, but it's okay. I hope you understood what it is that I was trying to say. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Any final words for the people, Sue?
Nope, just tune in again for the next one.
Yeah, tune in again. Thank you so much and have a good one. Bye.
Bye.